So let's look at the statement of cost of goods manufactured. Now, if you know how to calculate supplies used, it's the same thing. So remember how you had your T account and you had supplies purchased. We would have beginning supplies. And then what we would do is we would take, subtract out, we'll first add supplies purchased. I'm just going to write over this for a minute just to show you. I'm using my finger here, so bear with me. So you would have beginning supplies, and then you would add supplies purchased, and then subtract out what's left. So when you did this, and this is from Accounting 1, this is going to give you what you used during the year supplies expense. So we took beginning supplies, added supplies purchased, and then subtracted out ending supplies. Well, what we're going to do is basically the same idea, except it's not supplies, but it is the same idea. And with all of this, you're basically using that idea. Okay, so first let's look at direct materials. We're going to have beginning materials inventory, what's there, plus anything that's purchased. And that's going to give us the cost that's available for us to use, what's there and what we bought during the year. Then you're going to subtract out your ending materials, and that's going to tell you the cost of direct materials used. So now we know how much we used. What was there plus what we purchased gave us what was available, minus what's still there gives us what we used. So there's my direct materials used number. Then I'm going to add direct labor, and they almost always give you that number. Then I look for any items that would be included in manufacturing overhead or factory overhead. Those are your three costs there. And when I add those three numbers together, that's going to give me my total manufacturing cost incurred during the year. So this is all the cost I incurred during the year. That last highlighted number. So I'm going to take those manufacturing costs I incurred during the year, add them to my beginning work in process inventory, and that's going to give me my total manufacturing costs that I have to account for. Now, if I subtract out my ending work in process, remember it's just kind of like it's the same idea, beginning WIP plus manufacturing costs gives me the total manufacturing costs minus ending WIP. That gives me my cost of goods manufactured. So we're going to practice this several times. I'm going to keep going on for now, but I'll have a separate video that's going to go over this slower. And once you practice it, it will make more sense. There is a memorization component, so before you fully understand it, I would go ahead and memorize it as a full statement. Okay, so here is a visual of the flow of manufacturing costs. So direct materials, once they're used, they're going to be down here in the manufacturing process. If they're unused, they're going to stay in the materials inventory. So if they're unused, they're going to sit on the balance sheet in inventory. Direct labor goes into manufacturing process, and manufacturing overhead goes into the manufacturing process. So here, once it goes into manufacturing, if it's unfinished, it stays in WIP. If it's finished, it goes into finished goods. And if the finished goods are sold, they go into cost of goods sold. So any unfinished work will sit in WIP inventory on the balance sheet. Any unused materials will sit in materials inventory on the balance sheet. Finished goods that aren't sold will be on the balance sheet, but if they are sold, they're going to be on the income statement into cost of goods sold. So this is really good visual to help you see what's going on. Here is a step-by-step of calculating the cost of goods manufactured. Now this is for the Legend guitars. So I'm going to try to zoom in for y'all. Let's do 200%. So here is Legend guitars. Here is their materials inventory plus their purchases. Gives us the cost of materials available minus ending materials inventory. This is the cost of direct materials used. You're going to take that direct materials number and place it down here. Add that with your direct labor and your factory overhead, and that gives you your total manufacturing cost. So total manufacturing cost, remember, is your direct material that we calculated in step 1 plus direct labor plus factory overhead. Then to get your cost of goods manufactured, take your what's already in work in process plus your manufacturing cost from step 2. That's going to give you your total manufacturing cost. So it's your beginning WIP plus your manufacturing cost incurred during the year. Subtract out your ending WIP, and that's going to give you your cost of goods manufactured. So this is what you want to memorize, the steps and how to get these numbers. And we're going to go over this in more detail in another video. Now we're ready to calculate the cost of goods sold. This is very similar to what you did in Accounting 1. You call it beginning finished goods inventory. Okay, now we've done one where it was beginning merchandise inventory, but we're doing finished goods because we're manufacturing this, plus your finished goods plus your cost of goods manufactured. And just to show you, that cost of goods manufactured number is coming from that cost of goods manufactured statement that we just talked about. So that's where that number comes from your cost of goods manufactured statement. So you have to have that number to calculate cost of goods sold. Then you're going to subtract out ending finished goods inventory, the ending balance, and that's going to give you cost of goods sold. So when you're calculating cost of goods sold, you're looking at finished goods, starting with what's in there, adding the cost of any goods manufactured, and that's going to give you the dollar amount of cost of goods available for sale. Subtract out ending finished goods to get cost of goods sold. So that's where cost of goods sold comes from. And then the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory here. Remember, sales minus cost of goods sold will get you to gross profit. So here is an example for you to try, and you're first going to calculate the cost of goods manufactured, and then you're going to calculate the cost of goods sold. So work this and then check your answer, and then we'll continue.